Hey everybody, for this week's tech tip, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about something that's kind of a pesky issue for some folks, especially if you give a lot of assessments in Schoology and if you sync your grades and you give modified versions of your tests. And that is that Schoology understands individual assigning. So if you give a modified version of a test and you individually assign it, the other students in the class, as far as Schoology goes, never know that it's there. However, both copies of your assessment are going to go over to Skyward if you sync your grades because Skyward does not understand individual assigning. It's just going to go there. There's going to be a grade column for that, and all the students are going to see it. All the parents are going to see it, and so forth. And if you've been doing this, you probably already realize that, obviously. So I wanted to show you a bit of a workaround that I've used in the past. There's two slightly different tracks depending on whether you're a person who weights their categories or if you're a person that does not weight. And it's not a huge difference, but it's something that you're going to want to pay attention to as we go through this. So the primary place where this is all going to happen is in your grade setup. Um, and in grade setup, what you're going to do is you're going to set up another category. You can call it modified. If you want to call it something else, that's okay too. This is the one thing that all of your students are going to see in Schoology. If they go to their grade report in Schoology, they're going to see that there's another category there. And if they don't take modified tests, if you don't assign modified tests to them, there's not going to be any assignments that are going to show underneath it, but they will see that category. So, you can name it something different if you'd like. It also might be a good idea. I never have had a student come to me and ask me about it, but you may want to communicate to your students, hey, this is just a category that's just there for me. It's not going to impact your grade in any way, shape, or form, and so forth. So that's just something to consider. If you do weight your categories, and so you can you can go ahead and weight all your other, if I have daily work and tests and projects and whatever else, you do all that stuff exactly the same way you always would. You don't have to touch those. The thing with the modified category, though, is that we're going to weight it as 0. Okay. So what that means is that any assessment that you assign to that category is going to be weighted as 0. In other words, it's not obviously going to impact the student's grade in Schoology. So the other thing with this category that we're going to do is we're going to not set it to sync to Skyward. So when you map your other categories, when you set up your daily work category in Schoology to talk to the daily work category in Skyward and so forth, you're not going to do anything with this modified category. It's not going to talk to Skyward. So it's weighted as 0 in Schoology, and then it's not going to send the grade over to Skyward. So your grades are going to match because of that. Again, if you don't weight your categories, that's fine. We'll have something else for you to do in the grade book. Again, it's not going to take a whole bunch of extra time or anything like that. But if you're not waiting, then there's something you got to do to make sure that we get the same result. Okay, so I'm gonna navigate back to my materials page, and once we're there, we're gonna see 2 copies of a test. So I've got my United States 2 final exam, and then that same exam but modified. So the big thing is, again, with your regular final exam, you're going to just leave that alone. You're going to do everything that you would normally do exactly the same way. But if you have a modified copy, in the settings of that assessment, and you can do it as you're setting it up initially, or you can go in once it's done and click the edit button to bring up sort of the primary settings for that assessment. And once it loads, most of the settings are going to be the same. the big thing with this is that we're going to choose that modified category. All right. And that's going to be what is sort of going to keep this from syncing over to Skyward. And it's also going to be, either weighted as 0, or like I said, we'll have that other path for other folks here in a minute. And it's going to keep it from impacting the student's grade. Okay. And you might be wondering, well, then how is this gonna? How the student takes the test? How is the score? How are we going to get it in there and all that kind of stuff? I'm going to show you that here in a moment. So then also down here, most folks know that this is here, but just in case you don't, there's an individually assigned button. If I click on it, I mean, typically it's going to be grayed out, but if I click on it, it's going to open up this other field where I can type in the student's name. And if I type in one student's name, then that now means that no other students are going to see this except for whatever students I put in here. So I can put as many in there as I want, but if their name is not in there, then they won't see this test. They won't even know that it's there. Okay. So once I've done that, I click save. Let's say students have taken the exam or whatever, and I'm going to go over to my gradebook area. And normally, obviously, when a student finishes taking an assessment in Schoology and it's auto graded and all that kind of stuff, you see the little puzzle piece that's going to show up in their grade buckets. And so, I don't have any students in this course to demonstrate that for you. So I went ahead and basically punched in some grades manually. Okay. So what you're going to see in the end result, here's my U.S. final exam, my typical one, and then over here I have my modified copy of that only one student took, and you can see the other students in the course on this one are grayed out. Okay, because they did not have access to this because it was individually assigned to just this one student. All right. So that student took their modified version of the test. And that's, again, something you're going to have to communicate to your students that are taking the modified version. You're going to have to say, hey, you're going to see 2 copies of the exam, and you're going to take the one that is marked as modified or whatever other marker you want to put on it. Okay. So the student took the modified copy. Now, remember, if I just leave this in here and I don't copy their score over here, well, then it's not going to impact their grade. Okay. It's not going to be, it's going to be like they never took it. Okay. So, to do that, and it makes it nice and easy. These 2 tests, I put due dates on them and everything. So they're side by side. And so all I have to do is copy that score into this column. And now it will go over to Skyward in the same column as all the other students. And again, because I weighted this column as 0, because I weighted this category as 0, it's not going to be a double whammy on them. And I can leave it there. So if something comes up, I can go back, I can click and view their test results and, all their answers and just all that kind of stuff. If there's any, concerns about how they actually did on the exam, I still have that there. So what if, though, you do not weight your categories? What do we do? Because if it's not weighted, then, and it's just basically all total points, well, right now, this is counting against that student twice. So what do I do? Well, if I hover over this student's grade, I'm going to get a flag. And again, typically, like, I had to erase that score to get this to show up. But if they actually took the assessment, I'm not going to have to erase the score to do that. I'm just going to hover over the thing, over this grade bucket, and I'm going to get the little flag. And then if I click on it, I'm going to get these 3 options. Okay. So if I click excused, that's basically the same as no count in Skyward. And I click that, and it's going to show me this little hexagon green shape, and then it's going to put a dash in there. So now that grade is not affecting their score twice anymore. If this was a true, if this was an exam and the student had taken it online, taken the assessment online, that score, if I decided, and it's not going to do this because because I'm working in a test course here, But if I wanted to go back and view the results to this student's test or see what their score was, I could temporarily click that again, and then their score would show back up. I would be able to access what they did on it and all that kind of stuff if need be. So it would, even though it kind of seems to disappear, it would still be there. So again, what this all results in is that you're able to give a modified copy of an assessment that only the students see that you want to see it, and you can prevent that uh, extra column from going over to Skyward. And so that's just, that's something that was always kind of an aggravation for me, and finding this workaround really worked pretty well. So if you have any questions about it, if you feel like you've got maybe a situation that doesn't quite line up with what I've shown you here, then feel free to holler at me. There's also I've got two different walkthroughs, click by click tutorials with screenshots and everything. One for people who weight their grades and one for folks that don't. So you can check those out as well. Hope everyone has a great day, and just let me know if I can do anything for you.